Over the past few years, I've been challenging myself to use the Pokemon Adventures Manga teams during my playthroughs of the original Game Boy games to see if I could beat the games using their exact teams. Which means that sometimes the teams can be a little, well, bad. This was especially the case during my latest playthrough, where I of course challenged myself to see if I could use Green's team in order to beat Pokemon Leaf Green. Now I know what you're thinking. It shouldn't be that hard to beat a game during a normal playthrough, but when you take a closer look at Green's team, you might change your mind. Despite Green being one of my favorite characters in the manga, her team is very normal. And I don't mean normal as in average, I mean it literally consists of mostly normal types, since unfortunately the fairy type didn't exist back then, making this team a lot harder to use effectively. Couple that with some self-imposed rules like no healing items in battle and attempting to not over-level a la Nuzlocke without actually being a Nuzlocke, because I'm pretty sure this team wouldn't make it very far if it was. And we had our work cut out for us. In the manga, Green actually steals her Squirtle from Professor Oak's lab after seeing Red and Blue get their starters, so obviously we had to pick Squirtle, aka Blasty, as she so lovingly named hers, while our rival Blue picked Bulbasaur. And immediately, he's ready to tussle. We narrowly managed to squeak out our first win with a tackle on literally 1 HP in a dream, while Blue proceeds to blame his old Pokemon as if he didn't have the type advantage. We then headed up to the Pokemart in Viridian to pick up Oak's parcel and dropped it back off to him in Pallet Town to receive our Pokedexes, as well as go bother Blue's sister for the town map. We then made our way back to Viridian to start our adventure, but were rudely interrupted by Blue yet again. At this point, Blue now had 2 Pokemon, Pidgey and Bulbasaur, while I still only had Squirtle since I wouldn't be able to catch any of the other team members until after we beat the first gym. We managed to take out Pidgey with a critical hit and kept the same energy when facing Bulbasaur and got 2 back-to-back crits, knocking it out. Since the gym leader in Viridian was nowhere to be found, we made our way through the forest, squashing all of the bug catchers, and up to Pewter City to face our first gym battle against Brock, which despite only having Squirtle, of course ended up being light work considering our type advantage. And we easily one-shotted his whole team, which gave us enough XP to evolve Blasty into War Turtle, giving us now one strong-ish member of the team. As we start heading over to Mount Moon, we pick up the running shoes from Professor Oak's aide and manage to make it through the slew of trainers on routes 3 and 4. Luckily for us, we just so happened to be able to catch not 1, but 2 members of the squad in the grass on route 3, so both Nido and Jiggly joined the team right before entering Mount Moon. On Mount Moon, not only do we manage to pack up all of the trainers that were lurking, but we were also introduced to our villains for the game, Team Rocket, which we also proceeded to quickly deal with. We also met Super Nerd Miguel, who was standing in our way of getting our Dome Fossil, although nothing would come of it since it wasn't a member of the team anyway. However, another member of the team was hiding here, Clefairy, and we just so happened to find a male like Green's, so we quickly caught it and named it Cleffy. You'll see a pattern with her nicknames, by the way. But after exiting Mount Moon and collecting our Moonstones and some XP from the trainers on Route 4, we were able to level up Nido and evolve her into Nidorina. We then made our way to Cerulean City, where I picked up a rare candy and decided against my better judgment to evolve both Nidorina and Jigglypuff with the 2 Moonstones I had collected on Mount Moon, giving us 2 fully evolved members of the team all before the second gym. This ended up working in our favor, however, as we had to fight Blue yet again before facing Nugget Bridge. We have Jiggly take care of Pidgeotto and switched in Blasty to take care of Rattata, but it was then time to fight his Bulbasaur with the infamous Sleep Powder. Nido gets slept after getting 1 good crit on Bulbasaur, but manages to wake up after taking a significant amount of damage and takes it out with a scratch. Cleffy then made light work of Abra since all it could do was teleport, and it was now time to make our way through Nugget Bridge. We managed to make it through to the last trainer, which just so happened to be another member of Team Rocket, foil their attempt at recruiting us, and finally make our way to the Cerulean Gym to face Misty. We start with Cleffy to take out Staryu and use Jiggly to lull Starmie to sleep so that it can't be annoying and use Recover. We then have Blasty finish it off with a bite, earning us our second gym badge. After leaving the Cerulean Gym, we make our way over to this man Bill's house, who wasn't a man at all. He was a Pokemon. Everyone has their thing, I guess. But we help turn him back into a human, and in return he gives us a ticket to use on the SS Anne over in Vermilion. So of course we make the trek through the underground path over to our next destination, which is of course Vermilion City. We make our way over to the SS Anne to board and rudely barge in on all of the guest rooms to battle. And just as we're about to go meet the captain, we of course run into Blue yet again. Kinda seems like he's a little obsessed with us. We have Nido take care of Pidgeotto with Body Slam and have Blasty deal with the almost broken Kadabra with Bite. Thank God we had a coverage move. We then bring back Nido to take care of Ivysaur, who was able to get a lucky para on it. It also helped that Ivy was blind and missed sleep powder, so we took it out with a body slam the next turn. Nido was definitely our strongest member of the team at this point and brought us to victory against Blue basically on her own. But with Blue out of the way, we were finally able to meet the captain and get cut so that we could make it through to the Vermilion City gym to face Lieutenant Surge. Well, that is after completing the worst puzzle ever. Nido was actually the MVP here in this gym too, since she was a ground type and somehow managed to get a para on an electric type. Silly Gen 1 mechanics. But she quickly body slammed her way through to victory, even fighting through her own paralysis, earning us our 3rd gym badge. We then made our way through Rock Tunnel thanks to the new TM Surge gave us, and made a quick pit stop in Lavender Town before heading to Celadon City. We heard that Team Rocket had a secret hideout in the game corner where they were hiding the Sylph Scope, which we needed to see the ghosts in the Pokemon Tower. We bullied the members into giving us the lift key, which allowed us to finally meet the big bad leader, Giovanni, who specialized in ground types, despite starting with an Onix. Good thing Nido was running double kick, huh? But it was then time for Blasty to take the spotlight. He quickly one-shotted Rhyhorn, and all was looking well, until Kangaskhan came out, who brutally knocked out our star starter along with half of the team. So it was time for Nido to save the day yet again. But after narrowly defeating Giovanni and receiving the Sylph Scope, it was now time for us to face our next gym leader, Erica, who specialized in grass types. Annoying grass types. Things were looking bleak against her Victory Bell, which was quickly knocking out some of our less impactful members of the squad, like Jiggly and Cleffy. I guess Cleffy forgot that he wasn't a fairy type yet and took a ton of damage from poison type attacks. But luckily, once again, Nido came to save the day and used Body Slam to take out not only Victory Bell, but Tangela and Vileplume as well, earning us our 4th gym badge. Halfway through, woo! We then made our way back over to Lavender Town to visit the Pokemon Tower in search of Mr. Fuji, who had gone missing according to the townsfolk. We walked in with a Sylph Scope in hand, ready to battle some ghosts along the way. But instead of a ghost or Mr. Fuji, we ran into Blue. Guess we went a little too hard on his Raticate. But we rinse and repeat our same strategy from the SS and with the addition of Blasty taking out his new big scary Gyarados with Bite, and his new Growlithe to boot. Guess he might need to add some new additions to the tower. But after beating him for what seemed like the 100th time, he started yapping about some big bad Marowak, which we ran into on the second to last floor of the tower. We calmed her spirit by defeating her in battle and proceeded to go up to the final floor where we see Mr. Fuji being held captive by Team Rocket. We quickly beat them to try to save him, only to find out he was there by his own will. Excuse us for trying to help, I guess. But he takes us back to his house and gives us the Poke Flute so that we can wake any sleeping Pokemon. We promptly use this to wake the sleeping Snorlax, blocking our way to the cycling road. Yes, I did accidentally knock it out, but it wouldn't have been on the team anyway, so don't judge me. And take the road down to Fuchsia City, since it was about time to add a new member to the team, which was hiding in a little patch of grass over on Route 14. Ditto. Or as she so cleverly named it, Diddy. Okay, get your jokes out now. But we find our new member after some trekking in the grass and proceed to fly back to Saffron City to face the fighting dojo. A tall task for a team of mostly normal types. So we once again have to rely on Nido to carry the weight of the team on her back, which she happily does, taking out both Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan. But we did also manage to get Blasty just enough XP by swapping it in and out at the beginning of the battle to finally evolve into a Blastoise. We then collect our prize Pokemon, which will collect dust in the box since we were only missing one last member of the team, and proceed to finish our business with Team Rocket, who had taken over Silphco and was keeping the president captive. We find the card key and warp our way up the floors to try and save the president when, lo and behold, who do we run into? Blue. Excuse me, sir, if you were already here, why didn't you help the president? But we have Nido take care of Pidgeotto with a Rock Slide, while Blasty took care of both Alakazam and Venusaur with Bite. But despite all going well, Gyarados made me relive one of my most traumatic experiences from my first VGC regional ever and triple flinched Cleffy, knocking him out. So in retaliation, Blasty flinched it back with Bite, but then got crit the next turn and knocked out. Clearly we weren't out of the woods yet since Gyarados took out Blasty, and we were only left with Ditto to take care of Gyarados and Growlithe. Unfortunately, the Dragon Rage didn't seem to be enough, but luckily Growlithe knocked itself out using Takedown, giving us the win solely for fainting second to Growlithe. We take those though. After defeating Blue, we finally made it to the room where Giovanni was holding the president captive, where he was waiting for us to teach him a lesson. Yet again. We had Jiggly take care of Nidoran and had Blasty promptly deal with his Nidoqueen, while Cleffy taught Kangaskhan a lesson in love. And since all is fair in love and war, despite Kangaskhan being too in love to move, Cleffy, on the other hand, did not reciprocate the feelings and proceeded to knock her out with Brick Break. Blasty then wrapped up our win by one-shotting Rhydon once again, and we finally set the president free. And just to show off how rich he was, he gave us a Master Ball as a thank you. It was then time to finally face our 5th gym leader, Sabrina, who specialized in psychic types, which were of course broken in Gen 1. Luckily for us though, we had Blasty, who used Bite to chomp its way through Kadabra and Mr. Mime. Good riddance, by the way. Nito then took care of Venomoth with Rock Slide, but it was then time to face Big Bad Alakazam. So we opted to use Cleffy with its bulky HP stat and double slapped our way to victory, earning us our 5th gym badge. We then flew back to Lavender Town and headed south to Route 12, where we ran into the 2nd Sleepy Snorlax on the map, and the last, which we also didn't catch. Thanks for the crit, Nito. Like I said, it wouldn't be on the team anyway, but we got a new fishing rod and then scurried through the rest of the routes to make our way back to Fuchsia to face the 6th gym leader, Koga, who specialized in poison types. However, we didn't even go for type advantage here, and Blasty just showed off its strength and took care of all of them with Water Pulse and basically one-shotted everything, with a little help from Nito, who took out Muck, which earned us our 6th gym badge. We then went on the hunt for the HM Surf in the Safari Zone, which was nestled in the middle of nowhere in the secret house. And while we were here, we heard that the warden had lost his gold teeth out here too, so we picked those up for him. Brother, and brought them back to his house so we could finally understand what he was saying. And to thank us, he gave us the HM Strength. We then flew back to Pallet, where we used our newly acquired HM Surf to surf down to Cinnabar Island, where Blaine's gym was located. Except the gym was locked, so we entered the Pokemon Mansion to find the key to open the gym. And although on the surface this task seemed easy enough, it did turn out to be quite the adventure, as we had to fall down a hole in the floor just to get the secret key. But with the key in hand, we were now able to enter the gym and face Blaine, who specialized in Fire-type Pokemon. I'm sure this went as well as you would expect for Blaine, with Blasty basically steamrolling the whole team with Surf. Didn't even have to swap out once, easily earning us our 7th gym badge. After leaving the gym, we are immediately greeted by Bill, who takes us over to meet his friend Celio, who's working in the Pokemon Center over on one island, which is part of the Sevi Islands. We talk to Celio and receive a meteorite from him, as well as the Tri-Pass to sail to the other 2 islands, and an updated town map, which included the Sevi Islands. We then set off to explore the rest of one island, fighting trainers along the way until we reached a spa. We spoke to one of the visitors who gave us the HM Rock Smash, which would come in handy later on. We then surfed up to the northernmost part of one island, Mount Ember, which was where Moltres was said to reside. But we decided to figure all of that out later in our journey, so we went back to the dock and set sail for 2 Island. On 2 Island, we visited the game corner, where we found out that the owner's daughter was missing. He asked for our help to find her in the forest on 3 Island, and we happily obliged before being rudely interrupted by a biker. We then took a brief side trip to get the TM Hydro Cannon for Blasty and set sail for 3 Island. On 3 Island, we ran into the bikers' buddies, who were riding around the whole town thinking they owned the place. We of course had to bring them down a peg and quickly pack them up, before continuing on our quest to find Lostel in the forest. How did this girl even end up in the middle of the forest crying on a whole different island anyway? Oh, that's how. Hypno hypnotized her and lured her away. So we save Lostel from Hypno by catching it and reunite her with her dad back on 2 Island. We also hand him the meteorite from Celio, and in exchange he gives us a moonstone that we can use to eventually evolve Cleffy. But with Lostel safe, it was now time to face Moltres on Mount Ember. We have Cleffy sing it to sleep and are eventually able to catch it in an Ultra Ball. But with Moltres now quelled, we head back over to meet up with Bill again, who takes us back to Cinnabar so that we can continue our journey. Which meant it was time to face the final gym challenge, the Viridian City Gym, which had been shrouded in mystery since the beginning of our journey. And wouldn't you know, the gym leader is Giovanni. How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? But of course, his ground-type Pokemon stood no chance against our star starter Blasty, who quickly surfed all of them into the Shadow Realm, thus earning us our 8th and final gym badge. With all the gyms now defeated, it was time to catch the other 2 legendary birds, so we fly over to Route 10 and surf down to the power plant to find Zapdos. We catch it in an Ultra Ball with the help of Nito, and then fly back to Fuchsia City to surf down to the Seafoam Islands to find Articuno. We have Cleffy put this one to sleep as well, and give Articuno a nice new home in an Ultra Ball, making us 3 for 3 with the birds. With all the badges and all 3 birds, it was finally time for us to head back to Viridian to start making our way towards the Indigo Plateau. But once again, like clockwork, Blue shows up to hassle us. Little did he know, we had made some upgrades since the last time he saw us, and Jiggly took down Pidgeot with its new move, Thunderbolt, as well as Rhydon with Ice Beam. She also quickly swept Gyarados with a single Thunderbolt as well. That 4 times weakness was doing doing it no favors. We also traded over our final member of the team, Gramble, who was ready to put in the work with its big physical attacks. He took out both Growlithe and Alakazam with Earthquake, despite taking an Intimidate from Growlithe earlier, while Jiggly used another Ice Beam to take down Venusaur, leading us to yet another victory against Blue. We then made our way through Victory Road, squashing all of the wannabe champion chumps, and finally arrived at the Indigo Plateau, where it was time to face the Elite Four. We start off against Lorelei and her team of Ice-type Pokemon, who proved to be the hardest matchup we had thus far in our journey, all thanks to that Lapras of hers. Not to mention Jiggly, our star during this battle, getting frozen, but luckily thawing in time to vanquish Lapras with a couple of Thunderbolts. We then moved on to the next member, Bruno, who specialized in fighting-type Pokemon, which, like I mentioned earlier, is not an easy matchup for this team. Luckily, he started with Onix, which we quickly washed away with Blasty, who also took care of Hitmonchan. We then brought in Nido to take care of Hitmonlee, and finished him off by wiping out his final two Pokemon, Onix and Machamp, with Blasty. For our next challenge, we faced off against Agatha, who specialized in Ghost-type Pokemon, except most of her Pokemon are Poison types that are immune to Ground-type attacks, and so we're forced to rely on other tactics to get us through the battles, like using Crunch and Bite on Gramble and Blasty. Not to mention Rock Slide from Nido, which do eventually lead us to victory and on to the final member of the Elite Four, Lance, who specializes in Dragon-type Pokemon. At this point, I really wish that some of my normal types were actually fairies, but we were able to find a way through not only his dragons, but his fake dragons Gyarados and Aerodactyl as well. Were these guys lost or what? But with the help of Jiggly and Blasty, we were able to Ice Beam our way to a battle with the champion of the Kanto region, which was none other than Blue himself. At this point, we already had the whole battle mapped out in our head and knew exactly who to send out for each matchup and when. But we did have a surprise MVP with Ditto transforming into Venusaur and beating it at its own game, with Blasty and Jiggly then bringing us to victory on the home stretch, finally making us the champions of the Kanto region. With our names now in the Hall of Fame, we headed back to Pallet to get our Pokedexes upgraded, and then back to the Sevi Islands to help Celio find the Ruby and Sapphire to link his machine with other regions. So we headed back to Mount Ember to get the Ruby, where we ran into Team Rocket? I thought these guys were disbanded. But we quickly take care of them and head back into Mount Ember to get the Ruby and bring it back to Celio, who then gives us an updated Rainbow Pass to travel to the rest of the Sevi Islands, as well as another page of the town map to continue our search for the Sapphire. We use our new pass to head to Four Island, where we quickly chat with Blue and then head into Icefall Cave to find the HM Waterfall, which we use to surf up the water and find Lorelei in the middle of a tussle with Team Rocket. We help her defeat them and get absolutely nothing in return, so we then decide to explore Six Island. On Six Island, we make our way through the grass and find a building whose door can only be opened with the help of our rat friend who we taught Cut to. With the help of my live stream chat, we make our way through the puzzle and finally find the Sapphire we've been looking for, until this bozo takes it. We head back to Five Island, where we find Team Rocket's warehouse and decide to break in using the passwords. So I guess not really breaking in, since we just kind of let ourselves in. But we make our way through the maze and finally face off against the Sapphire Thief in order to get it back. We quickly sweep him and hand off the Sapphire to Celio so that he can finally link his machine to the Hoenn region. With our side quest complete, we can now head over to Seven Island to figure out one last puzzle that allows us to unlock Unknown. So we complete the puzzle and head over to the ruins to catch the first Unknown we can find, just to say that we did. But with all the tasks now complete on the Sevi Islands, it was time to go catch Raikou in his little patch of grass outside of Viridian Forest. We walked around with a Repel in hand and a level 22 Spearow until finally Raikou appeared, which I immediately threw a Master Ball at to avoid it using Roar and disappearing forever. But with Raikou now safe and sound, it was finally time to go catch Mewtwo in Cerulean Cave. So we surfed down the side of Cerulean City to find the entrance of the cave and went through the very annoying maze to get to the island where Mewtwo was just waiting for us. After many resets, we were finally able to get a paralysis on Mewtwo before it could safeguard and finally caught it in an Ultra Ball. This took 3 hours. But now with all of the legendary Pokemon acquired, we just had one final task to complete before we could officially say we beat the game. Face the Elite Four for a second time. This time though, the members had updated their teams to make their challenges harder, with Lorelei now having Pillow-Swine, but her Lapras was still the most annoying. And her Jinx. I stand by what I say when I say she's the toughest one out of all of the members of the Elite Four. But we managed to get through her thickest molasses team and make our way back to Bruno. Now Bruno did upgrade his Onix to a Steelix, however it didn't end up doing much good for him and we once again kind of just steamrolled his whole team. Sorry Bruno, I really thought that you would have put up more of a fight since fighting type you know? But with Bruno beat, it was now time to face the fake ghost-type trainer, Agatha, again. Agatha, in my opinion, had the most upgrades to her team, bringing in a Crobat as well as a Misdreavus in the second battle. And I'm not gonna lie, I did have a hard time wanting to knock out the Misdreavus because it just so happens to be one of my favorite Pokemon because it's adorable. But alas, we vanquished the false ghost trainer and move on to Lance and his dragons. And his fake dragons. Now, I really thought that this would be a cakewalk like our first time around, but Lance brought in a whole Kingdra as well as leveled up his Dragonite, which we luckily were able to freeze. However, it did get a turn 1 thaw and hit us with a Hyper Beam, but Blasty managed to hang on and take it out with an Ice Beam. And after all of that drama, it was all smooth sailing and we finally made it back to our final face-off with Blue. Now, when it came to Blue, his toughest new addition was surprisingly his Heracross, which apparently Gramble had seen enough of because it decided to crit facade it. Blasty then took out Alakazam and made quick work of Blue's new Tyranitar, while Jiggly easily defeated both Venusaur with an Ice Beam and Gyarados with Thunderbolt. Things were looking a little grim, however, since we only had to beat Arcanine, but didn't have Blastoise to help us out. Luckily, Clefty had poisoned Arcanine earlier, which was enough to take out its last bit of HP, making us the Kanto champions once again. With 2 champion titles under our belt, we had technically defeated the game, but I wanted to make sure we had done every little side quest available. So of course, we had to go get Lugia, Ho-Oh, and Deoxys. We started off by finding Lugia underground on Naval Rock, who had a surprisingly disappointing sprite. But we catch it in an Ultra Ball and then head upstairs to go find Ho-Oh. Word to the wise, say before you can actually see Ho-Oh, because he just automatically starts the interaction. I learned that the hard way. But after catching Ho-Oh in an Ultra Ball as well, it was time to head over to Birth Island to find Deoxys. I absolutely looked up the puzzle because there was no way I was figuring that out on my own, and proceeded to try to lead with Spearow since apparently Deoxys was only level 30. Unfortunately, Spearow got one-shotted, so we switched to plan B and used Toxic on it to slowly chip down its HP, and threw Ultra Balls at it and prayed. And it worked! So now with all of the event Pokemon captured, we had now officially beat Leaf Green using Green's manga team. The journey was grueling and at times seemed almost impossible, but with the power of friendship, I'm just kidding, more like the power of cheesing our way through half our wins, we had officially completed my latest challenge. Now, what challenge should I do next?